Welcome back to another video. A big hello to any of you that are new to my content. My name is Ellie and I share art tips and tutorials to get you creating. I'm so delighted for you to join me here with my beautiful kitty cat Maisie, where we will be painting an artwork of some Monstera leaves. What beautiful plants they are with watercolor paint. Instead of painting the traditional way, painting in with positive space, this time what we're going to be doing is we'll be doing this back to front and be focusing on painting the negative space. This is a really important technique that once mastered you can add to your toolkit of various artist skills. So I learned how to do this properly at university, as it was something one of my art tutors particularly focused on. And to begin, it can be quite challenging. Please make sure that you kindly like this video with the big thumbs up symbol and subscribe for more awesome content like this. Plus, you get to see my creative kitty cat too. Well, she does try to jump on my art desk now and again. So let's get going. Firstly, you want to mix up your paints. So I purchased a few different greens of these Winsor & Newton Cotman tubes, and I'm so excited to try them out on this piece. If you don't have green paint, you can always mix your own by mixing a small amount of blue with yellow and white for a paler or pastel appearance. Also, depending on the specific colour hue of the blue and yellow, it will affect the actual colour of the green that you mix. So here are the greens that I am using. I've got Hooker's green, emerald and sap green, and I also use Indian red mixed with black later on when finishing off this artwork. Ensure that you've drawn a light sketch onto watercolour paper, so a higher quality paper if you can, and if you do need some recommendations regarding paper types, I have linked a video up here that I've made previously above. The image I'm using here is a royalty-free image that I've downloaded, and I've also posted it in the description box below, and it's an image here of some beautiful Monstera leaves. Feel free to follow along also using this image, otherwise you can select your own, but just make sure that you choose something where at least 1/3 of the space within the composition is negative space. And it would be helpful if there is a transition or merging between the positive and negative space, like you can see in this image here. This really provides a good variety of values to the artwork, and it helps make it more visually effective. A quick recap or learning point for anyone new to the terms here: the negative space in the image or artwork is the space around and or in between the subject matter, and is usually the background. The positive space is the opposite, so the main subject matter, and is often what you want the viewer's eye to gravitate towards. Generally, but not always, it is good to have a nice balance with the amount of positive and negative space in your composition. To begin painting here, I'm painting a thin layer of water down onto my whole piece of paper just to get it damp. Make sure it is stuck down, otherwise your corners will bend. I have added quite a lot of water to each colour, and now I'm applying my first layer down using the sap green. This first wash is very light, so make sure that you add a lot of water. Then work your way from the outside edges of the paper in towards the centre where your subject matter sits. So because this is the first layer, you want the paint to cover the majority of your artwork, only leaving very minimal areas of the page completely blank. Then before moving on to the next layer, just ensure that the first layer or the layer before has dried. So now as we move on to the second layer, I'm applying the emerald green, which I've mixed in with a small dab of the sap green that we used on the first layer. The system to applying the paint here is to always paint in the negative space first. So in this case, the darkest areas on the photo are your negative space. Once you have done this, you then want to begin painting in the darker areas of your positive space, so the subject matter itself. and then work your way in towards the lightest area. Here I'm painting in the shadows of the leaves and using water to blend it out into the lighter areas of the leaf. Yes, this isn't technically just painting the negative space. However, what we are doing is using the layering technique to create a wide variety of values to your artwork. You are using the same color onto small areas of your subject matter, so the positive space also connects to your negative space and it becomes unified as a whole composition. To apply the third layer, I'm using the Hooker's green diluted down with some water. Notice how rich the green is, doesn't it just look brilliant? Again, I'm applying it to the negative space first and filling it all in. Try to be aware of your brush strokes as you go, so keeping it all in one direction in this area. Also ensure that you cover each layer of the negative space all at one time while the paint is wet to avoid the background appearing too patchy in places. As we are working in thin layers, you will see the layer underneath come through, so it may not appear completely smooth. This is perfectly fine, and it will go as we add in the darkest colours soon. Now apply the Hooker's green colour to your subject matter. Here I'm only using a very small amount, only to the shadows and darkest part of the leaves. Then I'm using water to create a gradient out towards the outer areas of the leaves. As you can see, generally these darker areas sit just outside the veins on each leaf. So doing this creates a strong contrast between the darker green and the lighter areas applied first on the veins, so it highlights the veins more clearly. Really ensure that you're looking at your reference image a lot to see where those darker shadows sit, and to be sure not to paint them too dark, as they are still the positive space in this composition. Now we only have 2 more layers left to apply. The next one is quite a lot darker, and I'm using a dark brown called Warm Sepia. Pretty much any brown will do for this. Again, I am filling in the negative space. This time, however, I'm not completely filling all the negative space. I'm leaving some small areas of the Hooker's green colour that we used in the last layer, and using water to blend and create a gradient with the green so there isn't a harsh contrast between them both. These areas are where the negative and positive space merge a little, and you will see in this other image of the Monstera plant leaves that in the darker area there is a lot more shadows, blending them into the background. Notice these are mostly around the outside edges of the image. I am also very carefully using a small amount of very diluted brown to paint in a couple of shadows on just a couple of the leaves. Lastly, our final layer. Now this layer will be the darkest and will only be applied to the darkest parts of the negative space. Again, we aren't painting over those areas and leaves that we have left the transition between the positive and negative space. Here, these darker areas are mostly in the center of the artwork, as well as the top left and bottom right corner. I am also painting in negative space within the small holes of the leaves, so I'm only painting a small stroke on one side of the area so it slightly blends into the sepia brown colour, giving a little depth and so it doesn't appear completely flat. To finish this off and touch it up, I've used a tiny amount of an opaque white paint, so in this case gouache, to add in those highlights to the light areas of the leaves. So technically this is cheating a little, as it doesn't apply to this video of creating an artwork painting using negative space. However, it is something that I always enjoy doing to my watercolor paintings to add in the final touches. Maybe this is something that you might like to add to your own watercolor artworks. I would love to know how you went creating this artwork or your own artwork using the very different approach that we have applied here. Please let me know in the comments below, and please ask if you have any questions. Also, if you have any specific videos that you would like to see to learn more, please let me know as well. Again, remember to like, subscribe, and stay tuned until next week for more art content to come. Until then, take care of yourselves, and goodbye.